So I'm now ready to write approve request function, and its goal is to approve a specific funding request. So my contract stores an array of request structs inside the request variables. So I need to ensure that when someone calls the approve request function, that they specifically tell us which request they're trying to approve. So that would look something like this diagram that I have here. Make more sense if I share this with you. All right, so on the right-hand side, there's an array of requests as a variable called request. And we have request A, request B, and request C. And Bill wants to approve request B. So in order for Bill to tell us he wants to target request B, whenever he calls approve request function, he has to pass in the index. And so in this case, Bill passes in an index of 1. One thing you might be curious about here is the fact that I'm using an array for handling requests at all. Why am I using arrays after I made a video surrounding issues with using arrays? Won't this thing grow and eventually have to pay a lot of money in gas? Well, in that other array that I covered, I had to search for a value in an array. In this case, I'm not searching for a value in the array request. I'm doing a lookup. A lookup request in an array is a constant time operation, just like a search on a hash table. So I'm not iterating through this request. I'm not writing a for loop or anything like that. So the function will be constant time lookup for the array. So I don't have to worry about any issues around runtime or anything like that. All right, so let me head back to my remix editor. Okay, and in here, right underneath of create request function, I'll go ahead and create a new function called approve request. Okay, and this is going to take an unsigned integer, and the unsigned integer is to specify which request I'm attempting to vote yes on. And I'm going to call this unsigned integer index. This is the index of the request that I'm trying to approve. Okay, and let's see, and this is going to be public, of course. All right, let me pull this up. There we go. All right, so now inside of this function, I need to write 2 quick checks. Number 1, I need to ensure that the given person trying to do this approval, the person has already donated to the contract. And number 2, I need to ensure that the person has not already approved or voted on this given request. So I can start off by ensuring that the person is a donator, like so. So I can do a require statement. And in it, I can say approvers message.sender. So I'm requiring that inside this approvers mapping, if I pass in message.sender, I should get back a Boolean of true. If I get back false by passing an address we've never seen before, then the function will exit instantly. So another require statement to ensure that they have never voted on this request before, like so, will look like something like this. So require, say requests dot index. So I'm looking at the request array at a given index, and the request struct has a property called approvals, and I have to access the approvals property, and I do that like so. So I do dot approvals, okay, and I have to check to see if the address of this person approving the request has been added to the mapping, and I do that like so by doing square bracket notation dot sender, like so, or dot message dot sender. Let's see. Yep. So now if this person has voted on this particular request already, then the last require statement should return true. Require statements do allow for truthy values, but they exit when they're given falsy values. So I have to add on a not in front of requests like so. Okay. So if the person's address exists inside this mapping, then it will return true, and we want to flip that to a false, and this will immediately kick the user out of the function call. So after this, I can place the logic to attempt to add the person's address to the approvals mapping and increment our approvals count as well. I can do that like so. I can say requests.index. So this is the request that I actually care about. And so I want to increment that by adding an approval count ++. All right. So I'm using the incrementer operator to increment the number of approvals that we have. So right before that, I probably want to ensure that the person is marked as having voted on the particular request. So I have to do something similar above it, or yeah, that's fine. I could do requests.index, and I'll get the approvals mapping, and I can do that like so. So approvals.message.sender, and I will set that equal to true. All right, so at message.sender, I want to assign the value of true. So now if this particular sender ever calls approve request again with the same index, they'll then fail the second required check here, okay? They'll fail this one. All right, so I'm accessing the request mapping 3 times in a row, right? And I'll show you here, here, and here, okay? Rather than doing that, I can probably assign it to a local variable instead that I can just create at the top of the function. So require statements can take place anywhere inside a function. So I can do some assignment at the top if I want to. And I'll do, yeah. So at the top here, we'll do request storage. And it's a storage variable because I want to manipulate the copy of the struct that exists inside of storage. I don't want to make a copy of it over to memory and then call it, I'm going to call this request. So now you see unused local variable error, I think. No, it says expected semicolon dot identifier. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to, let me just finish this. That's what so unused local variable. So I just have to ensure that I use request somewhere inside the function. That's all that means. I knew I was eventually going to get that because I just created this local variable called request. So basically, all you have to do, since basically we're taking this request index and storing it into this local variable called request, then we can just do copy, and we could do paste, paste, and paste. And there we go. Okay, so that's looking good. All right. And so in a subsequent video, I'm going to test out my code and ensure that it's working the way I expect. I'll see you soon.